What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the podcast. Gabe, Yanez, and I, we are joined by two-time guest, Nick Koumalatsos. Now, Nick, he was a former Recon Marine Raider. He's the founder of Agogi and also Johnny Slicks. He's a husband, he's a father, and he's a total badass. So welcome back to the show. I really appreciate you being here, Nick. It's always good to catch up. You said you started off last time we talked.
Yeah.
We talked about, I wrote this down, fitness as a gateway drug. Absolutely love that. 4 pillars, your 4 pillars, right? Generational wisdom is dying. So basically that, connection between men to share that knowledge is dying. Those are a few like the key takeaways. So if you haven't gone back and listened to our first episode with Nick, make sure to go do that. But this time around, let's start off with this. You said you had some exciting updates and news. What is happening? Let's start there.
So we just got approved. So we've been working on last quarter. So in Johnny Slicks, the goal was this year that we were going into retail. So we were working a deal with the Marine Corps Exchange, and that just went through. And then just a few days ago, we just got news that we were accepted by Costco. So Johnny Slicks is going into Costco for a specific activation. So big stuff.
Okay. All right. I'm going to go back in time for a moment, and then we're going to fast forward right here. Yeah. Many years ago, as a young man, I invested in a company called Batter Blaster. It was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Okay. So normally when you make waffles or pancakes, you have to make a whole bunch. And if you just want to make one for your kid or for yourself, you have to then throw away the rest of the batter. Right. So it naturally comes out, and I was working at the gym business at the time, is essentially like a Cheese Whiz bottle, where instead you spray out organic waffle making mix called Batter Blaster. And this thing was incredible, dude. We were on a rocket ship. I invested $5,000 when I was 17 or 18.
That's huge though. That's a lot of money.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
Anyways, it gets into Costco, and because of inventory demands and because of a bunch of stuff, it ended up causing a bunch of issues. And the company, I think because also leadership problems, ended up going under. I guess my original question is, when companies like yours go from being not in Costco to Costco, what do you have to be aware of with that volume? I imagine it's similar to going into Walmart. It's just crazy.
Yep. So it's funny you say that, is because Costco is notorious for killing businesses. I know of several businesses that they got a Costco contract, and that was it. That was the nail in the coffin. And because of their margin, because of demand, they just can't keep up with the cash flow and the demand, and it kills their business. So for us, we're taking a different approach. So remember, Johnny Slicks is all American made, completely organic, made right here in America, right here in North Carolina. We are the manufacturer. We manufacture ourselves. So we've had to scale manufacturing. So what we're doing is a little bit different. We're doing something called the Costco Roadshow. And everybody knows what this is without knowing what it is. When you go into Costco and you see these big pallets of product, and you see like a little table and they're sharing samples and they're explaining what the product is, that's Costco Roadshow. And you can do 80 shows at a time. So there could be 80 booths at over 80 Costco's at a time, and you can make a ton of money. So it's a 10-day show per Costco. And so we are doing it that way. So you have 3 things with Costco. You have Costco Roadshow, you have Costco Inline, which is basically you are a established MOQ in their product line, right? They're buying it on repeat and replenishing their shelves. And then you have Costco Online. So what we're going to do is we're doing Costco Roadshow, and then we're going to do a Costco Online in conjunction with Email Blast, so that we maintain. And then the email stuff is drop shipping. So our fulfillment center outside this door in the warehouse will actually fulfill all those orders personally. So it's a lot more control.
That's exciting, man. That's super exciting.
But
Congrats.
still very much an eight figure deal. So
wow.
Congrats, man. That's awesome. My job before joining Jason and NC Fit, now Train Hard, I work for a supplement company that was doing very well e-commerce and was getting into retail. And I left at kind of the tail end of that transition. But retail is such a beast, man. It's such a different beast too. And I can see why, you know, a lot of brands and a lot of companies end up, you know, like you said, nailing the coffin, getting into something like that, because, you know, you feel like it's just this huge purchase, but there's so much more that goes into it. What goes into making a decision like that, you know, regardless of, you know, like you just explained, you have a lot more control over it, so on and so forth. It's still a scary decision, right? Like you're doing something that's working on the e-commerce side.
Business is scary though.
Yeah.
So what
you got to be built. You got to be built for it.
What's the advice? What's the advice there? Or is it just like you're either built for it or you're not?
You got to think like we're not, you know, like when I was in Salt Lake City, I did a panel with guys, Sean, the guy who started Hello Bella and the Honest Company with Jessica Alba, and he's working on his third, and there was a couple other brands as well. And anyways, so they built Hello Bella basically straight to retail, right? But they didn't use any of their own money. It was source funds. He had a proof of concept he already had the relationships with Walmart. So basically it was Walmart saying, "Hey, we want to do this. Either we're going to have you do it, or we're going to do it ourselves internally." So there's different levels, but for guys like us, like I didn't come from that. You know what I mean? Like I'm a GED kid from Florida. We have to build from the ground up, right? You got to think Johnny Slick's about to hit our 7 years. So we've been building this thing up for 7 years with zero intention to go into retail until a certain moment. You know, most people think like, oh man, if I could get into a store. We actually killed in 2023, I killed our wholesale deals with all of our companies. I got a little bit of flack about it. One guy tried to fight me. He like literally wanted to fight me over like a couple $100, which I thought was hilarious.
So wait, you showed up to his door and you're like, "Hey man,"
I didn't show up to his door. We just sent a company email. I mean, we're a 7-figure company. I sent an email personally from me to the wholesaler saying, "Hey, listen, due to shifts in demand and the way that we're growing, we are going to no longer offer a wholesale deal." And that was strategic to pull the reins back on the company, get our internal processing and our manufacturing process down and really, really tight and scale that so that we can produce at scale. I mean, guys, just to, you know, I mean, you're talking like millions and millions of product a year. And just until this past year, we were hand labeling. Like we had employees labeling your products. Like that's a lot. Right. And so we strategically did that in an effort to get our processes in order so that we could scale into retail for 2025. And I remember our friend Nick from BPN, you know, he did a very similar process to where he was very strategic on going to market, because you mess up going to market that first time, it could kill you, and you might never go to market after that.
Wait, so you sent out an email saying, "Hey man, we're going to get rid of wholesale. We're going to try and take this back in house. We're not going to get up those margins, blah, blah." Yeah. And what, some dude wrote you back an email and said, "Hey, I'm coming to your doorstep and we're going to throw down," or what?
Dude, he got on social media and like said that we didn't care about veteran-owned businesses, and it was just some barbershop, and they would buy like literally like a couple $100. I mean, we're making millions, and he like listen, dude, I get it. I'll give you a discount, but he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna, you know, we're gonna fight him." I said, "All right, dude, come fight me. I love that. Here's my address."
You know, not to go off on like a quick tangent, but I do want to ask you, because I think you have a very unique perspective on this. You know, I don't know how close you are with Tim Kennedy. I would consider him a friend of mine, and he's been nothing but awesome to me. He is reading his book, being around him, like he is who he is, and he has been literally just exactly what you think he is. He is that.
What you see online is who he is. Him and I worked. That's how I met him. Him and I worked with Gerber together for years. Yeah.
But I guess my thing is like, is it normal in the veteran community? This just sparked this conversation in my mind because of your background, right? Is it normal to, I understand that stories from 10, 20 years ago or whatever, how many years can get adjusted and evolved. And maybe in some cases, like not exactly what happened, but is it normal? Are you seeing more of the veteran community kind of attack each other to then build notoriety? Are you seeing more of that going on?
No, that's been a thing for a long time. We come from it's an interesting dynamic because you have this rhetoric that like, oh, we're veterans and we're brothers in arms and this and that. But then when you get out, you come from and it happens when you're into, we call it a community of cannibals. Like we eat our own. We really do eat our own. And it's the old saying is like, everybody wants you to do good, just not better than them. Mm. And this happened to me too. When I started to kind of break away from the pack, do some personal growth and kind of go outside of what people considered my lane, I started getting it. And if you look at any veteran who does anything like that starts to get notoriety, Tim, even Dan Crenshaw, any vet that steps outside of what they're supposed to be and they say something, then they all get hate on. Mm. Like you go to my social media, I get tons of hate on. You know who it's by? Other veterans, which is crazy because for a long time, I stood on a soapbox working with veterans saying that companies should hire veterans because of our work, because of our aptitude to learn and adapt, because, that's true in the military. You do have a very high aptitude to adapt and learn things. We might not know it, but our aptitude to be able to learn it is really high. Our grit is very high. And I'm like, you want to hire these guys because they're gonna have a lot of grit. Their aptitude's super high, and they're gonna thrive in your business. And then it was kind of weird because I'm advocating for this community to get them to kind of come up, right? And on one side, I'm getting like, smashed with a hammer, But such is life, And when I really look at this from like if I take it away from the veteran community and I look at just men in general, that's happening in general. It really is. You've got people that break away from the pack, right? And they start to grow. And then what happens? If you go in I'm sure, Jason, I'm sure you get it too. Like people that are doing better than you never have anything bad to say about you. They will never make a negative comment ever. All they're going to say is like, good for him. He's doing the thing. Good for him. Like, what is there else to say?
Right.
And if I got something negative to say about somebody, I just don't say it. I don't have the time. I'm too busy focused on myself and focused on the 100 employees that I have.
Yeah, people throwing down comments and spending that much time just, because it's nothing productive. They're just filling up time that they have because they don't have that much going on, right? As much as you do.
I've actually signed people up for coaching with us, like haters, because I take a different approach. They'll like rip into me about something. And a lot of times you can tell they're like, oh, this comment was made at like 1 a.m. You're like,
yeah.
So you're drinking and you're up at 1 a.m. And a lot of times, man, this is what I do is I'll just be like, hey, dude, are you okay? Because any person online who doesn't know that individual just like sends a paragraph of hate. Like, dude, you're not okay. Like something's wrong in your life for you to even feel the need to be that negative online. Like I don't ever have the need to be negative online at all, unless I'm talking shit about some politics, but I tend to do that sometimes. But and generally if it's against another human being, like I'm not going to just trash you because Jason says something. I'm like, that's it. He gets to have a point of view. Good for you, dude. Whatever.
Yeah. Gabe and I were talking about this a while ago. I don't think I've ever in my life, and I could be wrong, like ever explicitly left a negative comment on anybody's anything. Even if I had an opinion, and let's just say I disagree with that person, maybe if I knew them, I would hit them up separately, right? Like, but doing it online, I don't know. I think it brings up a good point about this day and age and how things are going to evolve and bullying. And dude, I don't know. You see all the stuff Tom DeBoss puts up. I mean, dude, I mean, that's a whole different level. I want to get him on the podcast to talk about bullying and that type of thing. But
I'll shoot him a text and tell him. Easy day.
Oh, I mean, yeah. I mean, dude, my damn camera keeps going on and off. But anyways, I look, I think that nonetheless, the bullying stuff, all this kind of stuff, I just was curious your take with the Tim Kennedy, because you have a different vantage point than Gabe and I do. But back to Johnny Slips, just kind of close the loop on Costco. That's super exciting. You get 7-8 figure, et cetera deal. I love it. You're obviously, so for people who don't know, with Johnny Slicks, like that's in particular like men's grooming products, right? That's hair, beard, soap, the jiu-jitsu type soap, right? Those are your main products. Yeah. Okay.
So, and you know what? Oh man, here we go. I'm gonna go down the rabbit hole.
I like a good rabbit hole. It's like you about to say, hey, I'm going to say something controversial. Like, oh, where's my popcorn?
Super controversial. So the reality is this. There's many layers to Johnny Slicks. One of which is we are providing, I mean, it's crazy how many people are trying to take people's jobs. We have been pushed to outsource manufacturing and fulfillment so much. So bad now that people are coming, overseas sales reps are coming and knocking on our door saying, hey, we can manufacture your products cheaper than you are. We can do all of your fulfillment for cheaper than you are. And I'm like, so all these people right here, you just want us to fire them? These are like, I got whole families working for us. I got like our COO, his wife works here and his son works here. Like these are families and we're employing people and we pay very, very well. We pay way above the national average. And so by American companies, much like Origin, right? Very much aligned with Pete and what they're doing at Origin. Same with Fuel Hunt, and any other American made company out there. Like we not only are providing good wages for Americans, but we're also, all of our ingredients are sourced here in the US. So how many of those companies, 400 and something, I think 417 different individual vendors that we have, and they're all American made, and they all have companies and families and teams that they're employing. So we're creating this ecosystem of money that is making our economy better. And then what's happening with the politics and everything is only going to benefit us more. So there's that. And then you have the opposite, where you have these companies that are basically, I mean, at this point, there is no questioning that these companies are killing people with their products. J&J, they got caught for it. Their sunscreen was causing cancer. Guess what? 40% of J&J's profit comes from. 40% of their profit comes from chemo treating the cancer that they're causing. This is all public information. You can go look this up, because they're a publicly traded company. So it's all of their financials are public. You can go look at what J&J's profit is based off of cancer treatment.
Was that different than the controversy with the baby powder? Because they had a big issue with the baby powder as well, right?
They did. They've had a lot of issues. And the thing is, it's all chemicals. A lot of majority of it's produced overseas. And so we're talking about these cheap products. Yeah, they're cheap. But man, like, you're putting that stuff on your kids. If you go look at when sunscreen came out, like, you want to go down a really crazy rabbit hole, go look at when sunscreen came out, and then go look at the melanoma issues and all the different skin cancers that have come out since then. Watch the profits of sunscreen, the ads and marketing of sunscreen, and then go look at where those companies are, and then when skin cancer started.
So what would be the debate on the opposite side there? So if you're alluding to, hey, these sunscreen companies come in, they put some type of chemical base on these individuals, and then it makes their skin worse.
Bake it in with the sun.
Right. So if that's the assumption, right, what is the defense on the opposite side? Is that global warming is happening, so people are more susceptible to larger rays of sun, and this sunscreen is actually helping? I'm just trying to look at both sides there.
It's money. They just want to make, it's just a money thing. They're making money on both. Jason, this is the analogy that John and I use. This is what it is. You're going to give me money. You're going to pay me $5. I'm going to punch you in the face. Now you got a black eye.
Right.
Now, oh, look, I got an ice bag. This is also $5. Can you buy the ice bag for your eye?
Oh.
It's a good analogy. It's a good,
analogy.
Jay, to your point, I think it's kind of twofold, because the explanation that I hear a lot with a lot of these things, right? A lot of these like very controversial things where you can't ask the question of like, something changed, and then as soon as that thing changed, the thing that it was supposed to quote unquote solve, whether it's health, whether it's cancer, whether it's whatever, skyrockets. A lot of people, the argument is that like we're better at detecting these things now. Like we're just better at keeping track of it. That's the argument that you hear a lot of it. But
Gabe, why was the food pyramid made?
Right, exactly.
To sell freaking cereal.
Yeah.
But the food pyramid's getting changed, right? Or did it get changed?
It's gotten changed.
It's gotten changed. It's not what was it? Was it a Family Guy or Simpsons episode? They were like, or no, it was South Park, where they had to fix it and they had to invert it.
Oh yeah.
And it's basically just inverted. Inverted's pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah. You just fixed it.
Dude.
But that, I mean, legitimately, you got to look at all of this stuff. Eggs were bad. Did you guys hear that eggs are good again?
Eggs are good again.
Eggs are good
Finally.
again.
Guess what?
Make eggs great again.
They always were. Like, look at the obesity rates over the period of, the last, 40 years. Like, Jason, how old are you?
39.
39. Okay. So you remember you were born in 86?
85. Yeah.
85.
Yeah.
So you remember being a kid in 1989. How many fat people were running around?
Yeah. Things have changed. Things have evolved. But with RFK and with some of the changes, we'll see what happens coming up.
We'll see what happens.
Look at this guy wearing his Kennedy hat right now. Gabe's like on the Make America Healthy train.
Hey, bro, he's at Homestead Life. He gets it.
How can you not be? I don't understand how anyone can not be.
Dude, no, everybody should. Speaking of which, on this healthy track, I got to ask this is non-controversial. Gabe and I were having a conversation earlier about peptides and TRT. So last time we finished our conversation, we finished off with a quote unquote hot take on testosterone. And you came in with some passion, like, bro, everybody needs to be at 10,000 testosterone. I mean, you didn't say 10,000. You said like 1,200, I think.
Yeah, I did not say that, just for the record.
But you're like, hey, you got all fired up on testosterone. Then we basically had to close out. So I definitely want to give us an opportunity to talk about this because, we do work with a blood work company called Blokes. And my biggest encouragement for people, and we talk about this on the show all the time, is like, dude, go get your blood work done. The only excuse I could think of a guy or girl not getting their blood work done is money. And Blokes has it for $75, right? So it's like, it's really not a money thing. And if you're afraid of the results, that's even more of a reason why you should be doing it. But let's dive into testosterone, peptides, all the things and like what you've seen. Because I know that if I'm not mistaken, you're also affiliated with a testosterone company, right? Like
I'm a managing partner of Core Medical Group.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Cool.
It's a medical clinic, nationwide medical clinic. Have been for almost 7 years now. Okay. Yep. So
talk to us. Yeah.
Yeah. This is actually it came right out of this right here. Like I talked about it right here in that book. But basically, long story short, I was post-military. I was having a lot of issues. I pulled back the curtain. I shared everything, all the dirty stuff, me wanting to commit suicide, all of it in this book. No hold barred. Anyways, I had a friend at the time that he was like, hey man, I see you struggling and this and that. And he goes, and I'm not trying to say, because he wasn't a veteran. He's like, I'm not trying to take away from anything or say you're doing this or doing that. And he's like, but have you had your blood tested? Have you had your hormones tested? And this was, 2013, maybe 2014,
which it wasn't as readily available or spoken about, to be honest.
Nobody was really talking about it. And if it was, it was like, oh, you're just on steroids, which is still the case, but it's gotten a lot better. And I think a lot of that because of, guys like ourselves that are just talking about it more, normalizing that conversation with men. And so sure enough, I did a blood test and my testosterone came back as the first test I ever did came back as a 91. And I'm 32 years old.
For everybody's like, I think they say
that's low.
I think the average is what, about 400. Is that right, Nick? Average? Or 3 to 500.
Like for somewhere like the sad part is right now there is really not like a good one, but the most people that we see are sitting somewhere around 300.
Right. But even being low at 300, 91 is like really low.
My wife's like a 150.
Right.
You know what I mean? So,
I mean, anyways, she's super fit, dude, but yeah.
And she's a machine. I don't like rolling with her anymore. She's too aggressive. So no wonder that I wanted to commit suicide, that I was depressed, that I was having visceral fat, that I had low libido and like no sexual appetite, brain fog, not sleeping. There was a lot of stuff going on, right? So I get my blood tested, and sure enough, testosterone was low, got on TRT. Dude, everything changed. It was like having a clear direction with my business. I knew what I wanted to do. I woke up every day with like wanting to go like crush life. Like I wanted sex all the time again. It was just like, I want to do that. And it's sad, man, because, and we don't talk about this enough, is because there are men out there that do have ED, erectile dysfunction, that they're lying about it, or they're just being quiet about it behind scenes, and it's causing a problem with them and their significant other. And there's lots of forms of ED, just to be really super clear. Like if you can get an erection, that's fine. But if you still can't finish, or if you have a lack of sexual appetite, that's also, even though you can get an erection, if you have a lack of sexual appetite, that's a form of ED. So there's a lot that goes into it. And then the CBC metabolic, I did my labs and they did a CBC metabolic table. Well, that's not good enough. They tested your CBC plus your testosterone. Well, that's not good. What's your L8s, FSH? What's your SHBG? What's your free test? Like, these are the numbers that you need to actually know. And most people are not testing that. And what happens is a GP or somebody who doesn't know, they look at your testosterone and you're like, well, you're 450, you're 500, you're fine. But I'm sleeping like crap. I'm recovering like crap. I have a low libido. I have brain fog. What's going on here? They come to find out your sex hormone binding globulin is 50. So even though you have a decent testosterone score, your free test is low and you have no actual access to that. And let me give you an analogy for that. So Jason, say you have a testosterone of 700.
I'm going to pull up my numbers just so we can talk about me actually real time, but go ahead. Yeah. I'm still listening.
Okay. So say you have a 700. All right. But you have a free test of like 10 and your SHBG is 50 or more, 40 or more. Okay. Great. Jason, you got a Ferrari. You got a 2025 supercar. Maybe it's a Lambo. I don't know what you're into.
Yeah.
But you
got an old school Defender. That's what I like the old school Defenders.
Yeah, I'm more along that lines too. But nonetheless, you got a 2025 Lambo, right? Badass car. It's got, because of your levels, it's got 4 flat tires. So you got a badass car, can't drive it anywhere. So that's what those numbers mean. It gives you the ability to free test your bioavailable testosterone. It's what gives you the access to your testosterone. So if your sex hormone binding globulin's through the roof, for a myriad of reasons, then you have no access to that testosterone. So we have to get your SHBG down, and then all of a sudden you guys start feeling better. But that's the problem, is most people are not checking that stuff.
So the argument on the flip side of, this thing being something that can help a lot of guys out. And there's
Tell
some
me your arguments, Gabe. I want all of them. I want arguments.
Bring it.
Well, it's, as this thing obviously solves a very real problem for men, real problem, has helped a lot of men. We've had some on the podcast. Obviously you're an example of this, right? Helps you with your marriage, your relationships, work, everything. You're just operating at another level because you pinpointed an area of opportunity to improve and you improved it. As this thing, clearly becomes profitable and these companies arise and, there starts to be kind of like a scale of how responsible they're approaching this, because the thing that we all know is you can also improve your testosterone levels by eating healthier, getting good sleep, working out efficiently, like all of those things. Then
to a certain point, Gabe.
Sure.
And I can talk and I agree with you, but there's some things that happen with that, like what comes first, the chicken or the egg, and we can get into the details of that. But
right, like if your energy is shit, then you're not gonna, or your motivation is terrible, like you're not gonna do those things. So it could be the spark to get you to do those things. But the argument there is like, at what point is it, you know, if all you have is a hammer, everything's a nail, and that like now, you know, there are all these companies, you can sign up, get on a quick call. They're not digging into too much stuff, and they're just trying to get you the thing that they can sell you and get you on. So that's one argument.
Can I comment?
Yeah.
So in 2020 with the telemedicine stuff, a lot of things opened up, right, for TRT. So you saw a big boom in companies, online companies. Well, what you will see in the next 2 years is you will see a culling of these companies, online clinics. You will see a culling of online clinics because majority of them are not licensed in the states that they're operating in. And those licenses are very expensive, and you have to pay a license for every provider that's operating in the state. So you have doctor-owned states, and then you could have like a PA-owned state. So depends on the state. Every state has completely different medical regulations based off the controlled substance that you're providing in that state. It is, gentlemen, let me tell you, it is extremely expensive to license your company nationally. And majority of them are not. So what you will see is all these fly-by-night companies that are popping up with really cheap stuff that don't have a huge customer service platform, that you can't get anybody on the phone and actually have like a human-to-human conversation. A lot of online clinics will be shutting down in the next 2 years. You can timestamp this podcast. What's the 20? Is it 21st February 2025? 2 years. Mark my word. There will be a lot less online clinics because the DEA will start coming after them and start raiding them and auditing them and shutting them down.
So just real quick on the testosterone. So I'm looking at mine. My last test was in October. My testosterone was 553. My sex hormone binding was 47. My testosterone free was 89.
What
does that tell you?
It tells me that probably you need to you're a super fit, active guy, right? So that's great. Those are great numbers. Your testosterone will go higher if you deal with your SHBG. Does it give you a range on your sex hormone binding globulin and what it says? Does it say it's high?
Sex hormone binding globulin. It says the range is 16.5 to 55.9. That's the range, and it looks like I'm at the top of that range.
You're on the high end of it. Yeah, I'd be interested to see what your total test does if that thing came down to the lower end of it.
Yeah, I mean, these are all
there's a medication you can take called, I think it's Danzanol, that you can take for it's a really short amount of time that will take that sex hormone binding globulin and lower it. And then what happens then is it gives you, again, it's like putting air in your tires to give you more access to your bioavailable testosterone. So the fact that you have free test that high, and you have a 500, that's what, as soon as you said that, I was like, oh, his SHBG is elevated.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to go back and talk to the team. And how about peptides while we're on the subject? I mean, do you mess around with BPC?
Before we move on from the testosterone thing, I've actually changed my tune significantly to a lot of this stuff, honestly, because of conversations with, guys like you, Josh Whalen and stuff, because I feel like I came at it, especially in the beginning, with like a very closed-minded, like, hey, this is a shortcut that isn't addressing like the needs, you're not building the habits on and so forth, which I know a lot of people have that thought. So talk a little bit about what you were going to say before about kind of like the chicken and the egg, and you can only raise to a certain extent with lifestyle things.
Well, you have a couple different things happening, right? Let's talk about one. No trauma, no issues, nothing at all going on. Mm-hmm. Okay. After 30, super healthy dude, testosterone's going down. Mm-hmm. Your endocrine system is going to start shutting down. Gabe, you're 30 what?
34.
If I tested you at 30 and you're a really super fit guy, I know based off of your lifestyle, I imagine you eat very, very good. You're not eating chemical bullshit. You're eating real food. Hopefully a lot of it from your place right there. So 30 to 34, your testosterone's going to be lower. Just the way it is. Just that's life. We age. as we age, our endocrine system starts to slow down. That's why muscle density, bone density, or muscle size and bone density starts to shrink. All right. That's a big part of your hormones. All right. And I get a lot of hate on this talking about this, but this is just the way that it is. It's part of the aging process. Which is cool. Like whatever. If you just want to age and die, cool. I don't personally, I'm going to live that 25-year-old life all the way till I'm going to be like Sylvester Stallone. I'm going all the way to the end.
Bro,
Jack and Steel.
Dude, he looks good, right?
And he's like quick as a whip and like, he's in his 70s.
Hell yeah.
That's the path that I choose. Hey, it's not for everyone, but after 30, your hormones are declining. That's just the way that it goes. Okay. Now we add on type 1 and type 2 hypergonadism. All right. So type 1 hypergonadism, and maybe I'm getting them fixed, so don't destroy me as much. So type 1 hypergonadism is actually damage to your gonads themselves. So like I have a business partner who, brace yourself. He was skateboarding at 16, did something, kickflip, skateboard, hit it, and they had a brownout. Split his sack. Testy went out down his shorts, down to his all the way down to his ankle.
Yeah. I used to race BMX and I used to skate a lot, and I saw someone. I didn't see it. Like I knew it happened, but he was wearing pants.
You saw a brownout. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Anyways. Yep. So that's actual damage to the gonads themselves. All right. So that means how testosterone is produced. It's actually produced in your testes and then, cycled through the endocrine system. And then you have type 2 hypergonadism, which is what I have or had, whatever. That is actual damage to your pituitary gland in the brain. So a lot of veterans, fighters, football people that have concussions, TBIs, etc. That's where you're breaking the link in your pituitary gland that's running your endocrine system, that's sending the signals down to your testes to produce testosterone. So that's why you see a lot of TBI or concussion patients start having issues with their hormones. So those are real big. Those are like the big three right there. One, how old are you? I guess then you're adjacent to your lifestyle, and then looking at like trauma in your past. So for type 1 or type 2 hypergonadism, here's the thing, Gabe. Like if you got type 1 or type 2 hypergonadism, or if you're aging, like that shit's not getting better.
Right.
Like, I don't care. Yes. If you're really unhealthy and then you get healthy, can you improve your endocrine system? Yes. But at some point, that's it. That's all you got. If you have a TBI and it wrecked your pituitary gland, or you had a brownout and you have type 1 or type 2 hypergonadism, it ain't coming back.
And you can argue that you can improve those things through lifestyle alongside something that will make the lifestyle things easier to do, because you're going to be more motivated. You're going to get more out of your workouts. You're going to so on and so forth.
And we tell people all the time, like, dude, this is not a fix it all pill. Like you got to
do the work.
You have to do the other work. And that's what's crazy. All the haters like, oh, you're just juicing. That's the way you look like. Like Jason's on TRT. I don't even know. Are you on TRT?
No. If I was on TRT, I wouldn't be at 550 testosterone.
I don't know if you're on something else, but because some people get on HCG and maybe in clomiphene or something like that to just help, and they don't like. That's like so like Gabe, if he's like starting to have issues and he doesn't want to fully commit to TRT, we could do HCG and see if it boosts his natural projection. There's steps to it that you can take without going fully on board. But my point is if like they say that Nick Bear's on testosterone or steroids all the time, and I'm like, well, no, I just know how the dude trains. Plus, he has like super great genes. The same with you, like people underestimate the amount of tracking macros and the amount of training that goes into having a six pack in your 40s. And if you think that you can go on testosterone, sit on the couch and watch Netflix and get a six pack, like, bro, your brain's fucked up. Like, that's not a reality. That is not a reality in anybody's world at all. Like, there is no drug that you can do nothing. Like, you still have to diet your ass off. You still have to work your ass off in the gym to make that look happen. and what's crazy is I get argument all the time. I have fat pictures of me on testosterone, and I have pictures of me on the same protocol looking amazing.
Yeah.
That was lifestyle.
Yeah. The difference was the work.
That was choice.
I saw
Go ahead.
one more testosterone question. I did see a picture though of Nick with his dad, and it was like, oh, it checks out. The genetics are insane in that family.
Oh yeah, Mike Bear.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, he's like shit. I don't know if you've ever talked to him about it, Jason. He's like gummy bears and garbage.
Dude is ripped out of his mind. Yeah. Then the last thing that you hear a lot is that you're signing up for this stuff in perpetuity. Like once you're on it, then that's it, right? Like you're also dampening your body's own ability to produce, even if it is lowering with age, like you've now, stunted in some way, shape or form, your body's ability to produce that. So now you're signing up for something forever. Now, is that necessarily a bad thing? Maybe, maybe not. Is there some truth to that? Like speak on that for a little bit.
There's a little bit of truth to that. What people are really talking about is black market testosterone. That's one. So you can really mess yourself up going on black market testosterone. We've said this, we've batch tested black market testosterone. A lot of I forgot the percentage of it, but it was over half of it came back as positive for tren because it's cheap. So they had low doses of tren mixed in there. So because it was cheap. So the black market, for people who are listening to it and like, oh, it's just cheap, I can get it for $30 and this and that. The black market testosterone in 2025 is not what it was back in the 80s and 90s. A lot of times, let's be real, in the 80s and 90s, pharmacies were producing testosterone cypionate, and out the back door they had two trucks, legit truck and black market truck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just the way it was. One was more profitable than the other, but they had two lines. Now with China, and I mean, you got to think like some of the labs that are producing the actual raw testosterone cypionate powder is the same labs that are producing fentanyl. So we're in a different world now. So you get on black market testosterone, it can really, or steroids in general, it can really, really fuck up your endocrine system like that, to where like you might not ever fully recover. All right, that's one thing. If you go on doctor prescribed TRT and you're like, hey, I don't want to do this anymore, and you can come off. You can come off, and over a period of time, and if you do it right with the right assisting drugs, you can come off and go back down. Here's what's going to happen: you're just going to go back down to where you were, or lower based off age. So, for instance, if you start when you're 40, you do 5 years. Well, now you're going to go to what it would be at 45. So, and we tell people all the time, they're like, "Hey, I don't think this is working for me." Okay, quit. 6 weeks later, they're like, "Hey, never mind." I'm gonna get back on, because they forget how bad they really felt. Because a lot of people don't even know how bad they feel until they feel good.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm seeing from friends of mine that are doing it around here, and I haven't really explored any of it until like a couple of months ago, 6 months ago. So this is all a new exploration. So I like having conversations with guys like you, because they could give some perspective, different vantage points. But I am seeing that I have friends who testosterone has changed their life in a very positive way, along with living a healthy lifestyle, right? And I think that's really special, man. And I think that if it could help people out and be a boost, great. As long as they understand the pros and cons. Like a lot of stuff Gabe and I are talking about is like, we're talking about peptides. And I'm very interested in them, but I want to understand deeper before I pursue anything. But if I could find one that really helps my knee or helps my body, I'm going to share. I'm just going to share my experience, and people should do their own research and they should figure out what's good for them. But the fact that we're having more of these conversations, I think is only a good thing, because everybody we're having these conversations with, the baseline is you're living a healthy lifestyle. Like that's the expectation. Like
no one has ever said like, hey, I'm doing this stuff so that I can get away with eating shit or not sleeping or not working out. Like everyone's doing all that stuff. Like I think that's incredibly important.
Yeah. We're trying to optimize.
Peptides are amazing. They're especially coming from, the old school HGH, the human growth hormone, and then breaking those down deeper to where we're getting all the different peptides that we have, right? But you mentioned that the biggest ones that I that I'm a huge fan of is BPC 157 and TB 500. BPC 157 is just pure collagen, and if you got an issue with your knee, I would be injecting that stuff right into the knee, right into it. And then I'd be doing BPC 157, 25 units. So it's like the 0.25 on the insulin syringe every single day. And then I would be doing the same twice a week with TB 500. And they call that the Wolverine stack. And that's just going to help collagen go to that area. And man, I mean, I do it in my shoulders every day, from the military. I take BPC 157 in my shoulders every single day.
Nick, going back to what you were saying before, though, about black market and things getting really sketchy as this stuff gets popularized. My understanding with the research that I've done, especially with BPC 157 and injectables, because it's no longer FDA approved, is that the only way to get it is from these sources that are like research purposes only. Is that not true?
That's not true. No, we can get it. There is this goes back to clinics not having licensing, not having having proper relationships with their pharmacies, their compounding pharmacies. Yes, there's a lot of clinics out there. There's a lot of websites that are producing peptides that literally on it say not for human consumption. I've had people reach out to me and say, "Hey, we want to be a vendor for Core Med," and I start talking to them. I'm like, "Well, wait a minute. You guys are not." They're like, "Oh no, we are our own compounding pharmacy." I'm like, "Okay, fucking pass." Like we get audited by the DEA, and the DEA is like blessed off on our clinic and our pharmacies. Like, why would I jeopardize that many patients on taking a shortcut? And the deal is, I don't want to risk it. It's not worth it. Shortcuts are not worth it for me. I'm just going to get the real shit.
Yeah, I didn't even know that it was available anymore. So that's good clarity. Because
and I forgot man, I suck. I suck. I wish I had it right now because I have the actual name of it. It's in my fridge, and I'll just have to text it to you later. But
all good, man. I was just wondering, you brought up the military in your shoulder. Coming out of the military, and I know you wrote, a book in particular you wrote was very helpful for a friend of mine who's going through a lot of like PTSD from some bad, tough stuff. Coming out of the military, what type of, adversity did you have to overcome? Like, I physically, mentally, and what kind of skills did you learn coming out of that? Because obviously you were in for how much? You were in for a while. 12 years. Yeah, that's a while.
2000 to 2012.
And you were in during some like I wouldn't call it like peacetime
years.
Yeah, I would call it, you were out there doing the work, right?
Yeah.
I'm just kind of curious, like high level takeaways and what people can take from that experience and help them with their lives. They're not over there necessarily overseas, or maybe they are, but most people didn't have that experience. But life's going to be hard for everybody. And you learn skills through adversity. I'm just wondering, specifically coming from your military background, what you had to overcome mentally and physically, and what takeaway someone could have from that.
So I'd say the first thing, if you take away all of the work and the trauma, it's an identity problem. So we get you got to think, like, especially, I mean, you've got a lot of special operations friends now, you know what I mean? And it really is, it becomes who you are, what you do. Like, I was a recon Marine. You even said it, like recon Marine, Raider, like this is who Nick is. And when you're doing that job, it consumes your persona. I mean, it's like to the clothes you wear, to the neighborhood you live in, your friends you hang out with, the things you talk about, it consumes your life. It's not just a job. It's truly who you are. And anytime that you attach your identity to something, to what you do, you are setting yourself up for failure, because at any moment that thing can be taken away from you. And all of a sudden now you're not this thing anymore. Then what are you? Who is Nick? And you got to think, like, that's before we get into like the other stuff, that's really where the hardship is going. I was this Marine Raider, this supposedly this badass Marine Raider, and now I'm not. So like, who am I? What's my mission? What value do I have to this earth? And then you get told this stuff like, oh, you're a Raider for life, you're a Marine for life. But when you get out, that's not a thing.
Yeah.
And so nonetheless, you have that identity crisis, and that is probably one of the biggest ones for them, is just overall their identity. Now you put on top of that, you're moving 300 miles an hour. So you're moving 300 miles an hour during what time you're active duty. And then you get out and you are now going 10 miles an hour. Well, all of the other, carts on the train, their caboose is still going 300 miles an hour, and it smacks you right in the head. So you're over 12 years, I'm picking up trauma, I'm picking up baggage, but it's not catching up with me because I'm still moving fast. But once you get out, it all slams, it all catches back up with you, and now you got to deal with your shit.
Dude, so just pausing just for a quick second there, because I have similarities in a way with the CrossFit space. So in it, right? Teaching seminars, owning gyms, and you started to dress the same way as other people. Everything you explained has very similarities, but how do you not allow yourself to do that? Because isn't there a part of that that's like good? It becomes, you're passionate. It's part of like what you know what I mean? So I'm wondering, like, your lesson coming, if you can go back in time, would you have done anything different? And then obviously all that stuff leading up, that was a really good example with the train. And I can't relate necessarily to that, but I'd love to dive into that too. But back to, like, what could you have done differently then?
I think that I would have done things like jiu-jitsu earlier on. I would have had other communities outside of that community. So for instance, the people that in law enforcement, the people that are first responders, military, that do something like jiu-jitsu. And I know you and I, we push jiu-jitsu a lot because for good reason, right? The people that leave one community, but they have this other community, say jiu-jitsu or even CrossFit, when they leave that community, they have this other community to kind of keep them grounded. Mm-hmm. I didn't have anything. I was all in on this one thing. And like you said, there are some benefits to that because you're bought in, you're all in. But when that thing gets taken away from you, I had no foundation. Granted, also there was, heavily wartime, right? Or whatever you want to call it, conflict time. And I was gone out of 12 years, I was gone for 6 years. I was gone. So, it's just, it's a lot, but to do it over again. Yeah. I would have had the foresight to have some other things going on in my life outside of that when everything changed, not everything changed. Like, you know what I mean? And these guys that get out now that I see that are part of our gym that go to jiu-jitsu, it's like, guess what? They still wake up and they go to jiu-jitsu and they have those guys. So as they're dealing with some of these transitional issues that you're still going to deal with, they have something that's still the same.
I do want to ask about the train analogy. I thought that was really helpful. So you're going through 12 years of military. You're then deployed, come back, and deploy, come back. Along that journey, you're picking up
baggage.
There you go. Right. And then all of a sudden you get off the train and all that baggage is now, you need to carry it. Right. And I guess similarly, you could say that, like, men listening and women, they're building up baggage in their life, right? There's adversity that's happening to them. Not the same as yours, not the same as Gabe's, not the same as mine, just different, right? What would you say then? Do you think it would have been better to every so often, like, somehow release that baggage, for lack of a better term? Is that the answer?
Yeah, I do. And there's a lot of ego stuff in there too, right? Like lack of understanding and ego, to where it's like, well, that's not really going to bother me. And, and I can only speak for, to my own experience, but you gotta think, like, when we were going through deployments and we would lose I would lose, like, guys would die. I would lose friends. Well, you don't get to deal with that. Like, you're on mission. a bird comes in, they pick up the body bag, and you continue on, and you get back. Maybe you have like a little short memorial, but guess what? You're right back on the next mission and the next deployment. And then you get out to that deployment. You don't deal with that. I didn't deal with that. I just got in the next workup, the next training phase for the next deployment. You just keep moving forward. So you never take this pause to just acknowledge kind of the hurt and the loss that you go through. And that's what happens at the end, the tail end of that is when you stop going 300 miles an hour, I started realizing, and it's in the book too, started realizing that I had some hangups from things that had happened like 6-7 years ago that I just never dealt with. And I think that everybody deals with that on their own level. And I just did a great podcast with Dr. Barrowman talking about trauma, and he's a neuroscience that created a VR system to help fix trauma and post-traumatic stress. And it's a blood flow problem to the prefrontal cortex. And so really, just like with training, just like with nutrition, just like with recovery, you can't do it once and then be okay, right? Like this is something that's ongoing all the time. So your own, I guess you could say, and I don't want to say mental health as a crutch because it's not, it's just one facet of recovery that you have to work on, just like you're working on everything else. So if you have trauma, and everybody does, everybody has some sort of traumatic event in their life. And if you bury that down, it will rear its head at some point in your life, and it will cost you something if you don't deal with it. And that's where you have to go to war. And I talk about this a lot. You got to go to war with yourself. The only enemy that you have really is yourself. But you get what stops people from becoming better? Their own ego, their own pride, their own vanity, because they think that people see them a certain way. Like, well, how about you just drop all that, you be you and be a real human, because we're all human. And the reality is that the true reality that nobody wants to talk about is if I scratch the surface on humanity, everybody's in a lot of pain. They have a lot of pain from their past and a lot of torment from their past, stuff that they don't want to deal with and they don't want to talk about. And it's only surface deep.
Mm-hmm. Man, the biggest part of that, of the analogy that I took away was the speed component. And to me, that just makes me think about, because to Jason's point, we're all picking up different baggage, and to continue on the analogy, our train is going at a different speed. Some people are going 300 miles an hour. If you're in the situation you were, right? Like you have no time to think. But I think that's where, to me, it becomes important to have those moments where you're intentionally slowing down on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, on a yearly basis, whether that's a mindfulness practice, whether that's prayer, whether that's, having a monthly meeting with your spouse where you go over like, hey, where are we? Checking in, having a yearly meeting, like all those.
How are you doing? Like really,
exactly.
how's your heart doing? Yeah. How's your heart doing?
And you just have to be intentional about that stuff. I think that's what it comes down to, because it's to your point, the where shit really hits the fan is where you go from 300 miles an hour to 10 all of a sudden, and you've accumulated all this stuff and never dealt with it. You have to continuously find ways to slow down. And honestly, that's one of the things that I really appreciate about becoming a parent. Like, kids slow you down, dude. And that's kind of the point, right? Like, you can't go a million miles an hour because they're constantly slowing you down, but you can either get frustrated by that or lean into it.
It's an interesting point, Nick, because I'll just use an analogy of leukemia treatment. Yeah. Where they say the most trauma occurs is, well, not trauma, that's not fair. But like what happens is someone's in treatment for leukemia for years. And it's a lot of like similar to like, dude, you're just fighting the fight, right? And then after like 2-3 years, all of a sudden you get like a clean bill of health. And then 5 years you're cured. Like, but when you get the clean bill of health, you're no longer going in every day. That's where a lot of the kids and a lot of the adults even start to have some issues, because the train was moving fast, man. You were going towards this goal. And then all of a sudden it just like the train stops and a lot of it starts to kick in. So I think that talking about that intentionality is really valuable. What role, I guess like a final thing I'd like to talk to you about briefly is, and maybe this is the gateway for the next episode. What role do you think psychedelics play in all of this? What role do you think MDMA, mushrooms, psilocybin. What role do you think all that plays in PTSD for veterans and for others that you've seen?
I think it's ibogaine, 5-MeO, DMT, or psilocybin, all of it. I think that it is a huge speed ramp into kind of owning your shit, because it takes the ego away. And I think and I was going to get into it. That's what I was going to say to Gabe was, I think the big hang up with a lot of this stuff and why guys don't deal with it is their own ego and their pride. And it's like they feel that if they're going to bare their soul or cry or be honest with their significant other, that they're losing some sort of masculinity if they really show their heart of where they're feeling. And there's what is his name? Something Thorsgood was saying that, men live a life of quiet desperation. There's an old quote. And that's still true today. Men do live a life of quiet desperation. We put on this front and there's a lot on our shoulders that we have to do, and no one really gives a shit about your feelings, because as a man and a husband, you still have to do the job and provide and show up. So I don't care if you're sad. I don't care if you're struggling. Guess what? There's a job to do. Go get it done. And we do it. But it doesn't mean that it doesn't affect our heart, right? So when it comes to those plant medicines, I think the inroads are absolutely amazing at what they do, and they can really. So like I did when I did 5-MeO DMT, that was such an illuminating experience for me, and that's where I saw some hangups that I had, and I was able to get really free on things that really mattered the most. And I went into it with an open mind, and what it showed me was that we worry about stuff that really doesn't matter, that we stress about things that don't matter at all. And what really mattered, and literally, and I can give you the whole thing that I saw, but what really came down to was the only things that really matter was my family and my kids, and that everything was going to be okay. And that to stop worrying about things that are trivial and start focusing on the things that matter most in your life. That was it. How is that bad or wrong?
No, it's not. Great. And I think just like TRT conversations and blood work, I think psychedelics are going to become more and more dominant to talk about, because people are utilizing them as medications and treatments, and not like
SSRIs,
you know what I mean?
SSRIs and everything else that is just killing people.
Oh, dude, that's a whole nother subject for another day.
We don't have to open that can of worms.
The Zolofts and the dude, there's so much to unpack there, man. But anyways, I gotta get my camera still working then. But dude, let me get this back on.
Nick, ibogaine is the one that Sean Ryan talks a lot about, right?
Yeah,
he's talked a lot about that, but. That, and I'm assuming a lot of these things, because of them being federally not legal yet, without going into a whole nother wormhole. Why are these things not more accessible? Like why is it that people have to travel to I believe like Mexico, south of the border, to do some of this stuff?
Yeah, Peru, Mexico, a couple of them. So you gotta roll back to the post 20s, like when the pharmaceutical company started booming, right? All of this medicine was all plant medicine and herbs and different things prior to the pharmaceutical boom. And this was all driven by, was it Rockefeller? I think it was Rockefeller or Rothschild. I think it was Rockefeller. Where he basically, and the same thing with the school system. So if you really dive down this rabbit hole, you're going to get into some crazy stuff. But he basically hired doctors to write papers to say that these petroleum-based medications were the right way to do things, and that all the herbal stuff that had been done for thousands and thousands of years of humans was all of a sudden bad. I think what's happening now is over the last 100 years, we've just we're not getting better. We're sicker than ever. We have more medications than ever. And people are starting to wake up. And I think that we're in an age of authenticity where people are starting to wake up and wanting the truth. And they're gravitating towards people that are speaking the truth. And So these old school methods that have been around for thousands of years are starting to rear their head, and people are starting to lean into those versus a fake pharmaceutical medication.
Dude, I think that you hit the nail on the head by saying we're coming into an age of authenticity. I totally agree with you on that. I think that the pendulum swung way too far to these, synthetic, you name it. And I think people are, red dyes and all these things. And I think you're seeing it. Like a lot of it's just common sense. Like, dude, if it's banned in other countries, why wouldn't it be banned here?
Why is it banned here in America? Yeah.
Like, it's like, what? Like, hang on. They have different types of cereal in other countries compared to ours. Like, what? In Canada? Yeah. Like, why? I think people are starting to pick up on that. So,
right.
Well, dude, look, I want to be sensitive of your time. We could always, I could chat with you for hours. I'm so excited about your business being in Costco. I hope that you aren't 8 figures. I hope it's 9 figures, and that whatever happens is like the greatest thing ever for Johnny Slicks.
Thank you.
Where is the best place for people to go and find out more about like this Costco run? Is it johnnyslicks.com? Like where should they go? Your Instagram?
What my Instagram, then every kind of trickles down from there, and then go follow Johnny Slicks and me, and I share it all. I share it all, just as you do, Jason.
Dude, hey, well, awesome. Be a part of the journey. I know I'm looking forward to watching that grow. I'm a big, dude, I just want to see my friends thrive. And when I hear you getting a deal with Costco, it's like, fly, yeah, let's go. Let's go, Nick. All right, well, Gabe, anything? Otherwise, I'm going to close this thing out.
Okay. Awesome conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect. All right, guys. Well, hey, on behalf of myself, Nick, Gabe, we really appreciate you guys listening. As per usual, right? Leave a rating, leave a review, share this podcast with a friend. And it's part of that next evolution, man, of the authentic
age of authenticity.
Age of authenticity. All right, guys, keep getting after it. See you guys again next week.
Train hard.